So, Damian Lillard fancies the Brooklyn Nets and the Miami Heat as a team that he would like to go to next year. Is Chris Paul getting waived? Is he going to stay with the Suns? We don't quite know. Things are always changing over there in Phoenix. And the Denver Nuggets have got a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals. It's time to go coast to coast.
The mailman doesn't deliver on a Sunday.
If you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Anthony for three. Bang! J.R. Smith! We just saw men fly. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Cleveland! This is for you!
To another episode of Coast to Coast. I am Ronan Gaine. Joining me as always, Chris Nambu. Going to be talking about some of the trade rumors, leaks, what have you, going on around the NBA. The two major ones, obviously Damian Lillard and Chris Paul. We'll also be getting into the finals. Denver up 3-1. Jokic and Murray putting up numbers that we haven't seen since the star duos of LeBron and Wade and Kobe and Shaq. Are they just too good for Miami? We'll get into that, but we'll open up with the trade talk. We'll open up with a bit on Dame, a bit on CP3, but before we get into it, I want to thank everyone for making Coast to Coast your first listen. Remember, you like what you're hearing, you like, you subscribe, you follow. We'll keep producing that content. Chris, how you doing, man? It's been about a week. How you getting on?
Pretty good, man. I mean, we keep getting all this random little news. We still haven't got the John Morant news. That's the bombshell that everyone's waiting for. But just sneaking stuff in here and there, little head coach firings, hirings throughout the finals, even a trade. I can't believe we're not opening with the Denver Nuggets making trades on what it was the night of Game 3, the night before Game 3. But let's talk about Dame. We haven't talked about Dame in a little bit. That's been that subject that we just like avoid all the time because it's like over discussed and just over speculated and often taken out of context. But I just have one question about it, and this is the thing I think about. We all know that Dame needs to go in order to win. Maybe that's probably the best case scenario. So I think that for me is not as much of a discussion as it is a discussion for the Portland Trail Blazers. If you are the Blazers right now, what is your move? Do you believe in the young talent that you have right now? And do you believe Shaedon Sharpe? Do you believe in Anthony Simons growing? Do you believe in whoever you're scouting at that third pick? Do you think they should pivot away? Like, is this better for them as a team?
It's always the most difficult decision to make. You move on from this elite level superstar that you've been hoping to build around since you drafted him, or do you really think it's going to get better? Do you think you can have that one last go at it? It's so hard to make that decision, but in this moment, I know I was one that convinced that they actually got it right last year. Didn't come to fruition. That was kind of their chance then. I don't see them really making enough of a change up to this roster with the assets that they have to really make it a competitor, especially in the Western Conference where there's already a lot of teams that are well set to compete over the next few years. There's teams that are always going to be growing. So if I'm the Portland Trailblazers, I think you gave it a good shot, but it's in the best interest for both Dame and for the Portland Trailblazers, I think, to pull the plug at this stage.
Yeah, it's hard because you look at across the league and you look at how the season went this year, and I mean, I think the greatest storyline that we had was parity. How much parity there was in the league, how far the Lakers made it as a low seed, how far the Heat have made it as a low seed, the surprise you have in the Eastern Conference with the Cavs and the Knicks, where they ended up placing. Even looking out in the Western Conference, like the Phoenix Suns, they looked invincible for a few games, but proved to be in the playoffs is a different story. So I think there's a lot of ways you can convince yourself that you can still put together a team around Dame. I guess I look at it from the perspective of who's there in number 3. Like, do you believe Scoot Henderson? Is that a guy that you're like, you know what, we're willing to reset and just completely build around a guy like that? Or do you have another player? Do you have a Brandon Miller fall to you at 3? Do you believe in that guy? I think as a front office, you have to make that decision because you can't draft at 3 and keep Dame. That seems to be pretty obvious. That's what this all hinges on. So excited to talk about the draft once the time is right, because there's some young talent that needs to be evaluated further, especially after some NCAA mishaps, some guys who don't even play in college. But at the end of the day, I think Dame should be out not because of him. I think it's not necessarily even the fault of the front office right now, because I just don't think there's enough moves to make them as competitive as they need to be. I mean, look at the Denver Nuggets right now. Look at the Suns. Even though the Suns may have looked a little bit, even though they got beat, but you just watch Devin Booker and Kevin Durant combine for 70 points. You watch them be plays away from being right where the Nuggets are right now, and how good the Nuggets are right now as well. It's hard to convince yourself. So where do you want to see Dame? And do you believe in the kind of talent that they could bring into the Blazers?
Yes and no. With the two teams that he listed off, I kind of talked about the guys that he likes, and that was Bam, Adebayo's like his dog. Same with Mikal Bridges. You're thinking, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, it could end up just being another disaster case for them. Getting a guy who surely they should be looking in an area of maybe a younger guy. Not that Dame is past his best; he still has years to deliver. But they've got a young squad there in Brooklyn now. Is it really right to go out and get a guy like Dame? As much as I love Dame and I think he's an elite level player, does him coming in, does that automatically make them a competitor in the playoffs? That's a real tough question. And then how long of a window do you have with Damian Lillard then? With the unfortunate injury kind of history he's had over the past while as well. That would be a big decision to make. And then you look at Miami, that would be a very interesting trade. That would be a really strong move. I think that the scoring that he could provide, that would be such a big difference maker for the Miami Heat team right now. And I think if they value Tyler Hero enough, then it could, if the Trailblazers value him that highly, he'd have to be in the trade. I don't think there's any doubts about that. He would be a really interesting piece, and it'd be really interesting to see how he could come together with a guy like Shaedon Sharpe and another young guy like Anthony Simons out there in Portland.
Maybe I'm looking at this wrong then, because you mentioned Bridges, and I think the reverse might be true. It's not about the Nets getting Dame, but if the Nets are looking to go young, and this is the one thing that the reason I haven't been thinking about Bridges, because ever since they had the trade talks, ever since, they could have flipped him for another 4 first-round picks. We don't know who that team was, so that those picks could have been late picks, wouldn't matter as much. But if you're the Nets, you love Bridges for sure, because you just cashed out Kevin Durant and got a guy who looks like a rising star for sure. I mean, dropping high 30s, a couple 40-point games, looking like not just a top 5 defender, arguably best wing defender in the league, but also a guy that's going to give you buckets. And that just ups his value like crazy, to the point where I think you're going to get the 3rd pick if you trade Mikal Bridges, for sure. If you're the Nets, do you pivot to that? Because, Mikal Bridges is a guy. Like, he's an all-star caliber player right now if he's playing like that. But he only did that for a few weeks at the end of the season, and you hate to see flashes and just like over-invest in that. Would you trade Bridges for a 3rd pick? And it would probably take more than that, like two other protected first rounders. Would you make that money work?
That'd be a really big call for Portland. That'd be.
I think the Blazers
for Brooklyn,
would do
I should say. Sorry, I should say for Brooklyn. How much do they believe in the guys? I guess that's what it come down to. How much do they? What we think it's likely going to be Miller or Scoot Henderson in that spot. How much do they believe in those two guys? That's what it all would come down to. I think, as much as Bridges has shown he can take that little bit of a step, I don't think he's ever going to be the lead scorer on a team that are going deep in the playoffs year on year on year. So, that's where you'd look at it. And if you could get that sort of value for him, I think that'd be a very interesting move. I like the way you're thinking there. That'd be something I think the Nets would certainly consider. I guess it just depends on how much they believe in what Bridges done last year and how much that can continue to grow and be more for an entire season. And I guess how much value they place on the guys that are likely to drop at the 3 spot in the draft.
Now the money's gonna be difficult, for sure. But just brainstorming off of not without even going into the trade machine here. Thinking about the depth that the Nets have, it doesn't even have to be limited there. You know that the Blazers really don't want to give up Shaedon Sharpe. They don't. But I think if they really want to push all their, like, don't do a half measure. If you're going to do it, like, the Nets they have everything you need. Because if they're willing to give up Claxton, if that means getting Shaedon Sharpe, maybe that's a thing. Like, if they can make the money work to get off some of their bigs, Claxton would be great. To have him, to have Bridges, to even find a way to make the money work to get Dorian Finney-Smith on that team, to get off of Nurkic, to revamp the front court a little bit. I mean, putting out wings like Nasir Little alongside Mikal Bridges, alongside Jeremy Grant, alongside Nick Claxton, and then pairing that with Damian Lillard, like that, then you're talking about a team that's been revamped to the point where maybe you're feeling good about trying to compete in the West. If you can make a measure like that, then that makes sense for the Blazers. And I think that makes sense too for a team that's trying to reward Dame for his loyalty and trying to win it with him. But there's gonna be a lot of talks. I believe that Dame will be on the move. And now that we even just like dig into it a little bit without even doing a full run through, I mean, I think that's definitely a trade that could work out.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I think one I looked at, obviously, we're seeing the clips and the videos are going around of Ben Simmons and his doing his off-season workout, looking great, a load of crap. But I mean, if you're looking money-wise, I think they'd probably have to trade like Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, a load of picks to kind of get Dame over there in Brooklyn. It could be an interesting lineup. Like, if you think that this Brooklyn team could produce really high-level defense, if you like it at Bridges, at Claxton, and then they got the elite scoring of Dame, that could actually be an interesting lineup. And then what about Miami? What way do you think a move for Dame out to South Beach would work out? Do you think that is something that's realistic, or do they just not have the assets to really pull off a deal like that?
So that's where the inverse can't be true. Like, I don't think that they have the assets necessary to make the Blazers go in for that. Like, you're talking about them getting Dame or them getting the third pick?
Miami getting Dame.
Yeah, what would they offer? I mean, Tyler Hero.
It'd be to make the money work. It'd have to be Lowry, Hero, and a bunch of picks. Like,
yeah, I think that the Blazers could do better than that. I think
too much guards in Portland anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that they would move for that. And I think if you had to choose between both, I think you're choosing an overhaul. You're choosing getting guys in to compete with Dame as opposed to getting kind of mediocre picks. And I mean, Hero had a great season, but not. I mean, I don't think that in terms of offensive production, you're going to see a lot different between him and Anthony Simons if Anthony Simons is going to continue to mature in his offensive game.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. That's just good. That's always the issue. It feels like with Miami, they often don't have the as great as some of their outside guys have done this year. They still don't have the talent there to be able to make a big trade like that while remaining a competitor. Like, you don't think they shouldn't get a guy like Dame without having to give up like a Bam or a Jimmy, and that's just pointless then.
Yeah.
Then you got any other thoughts on Dame, or will we move on to talk CP3?
I think you got me going on that Nets thing. We definitely want to revisit that, because that sounds like something that worked out. Because I'm thinking about when their GM was talking about wings that they liked, and we were laughing at it because they were like, "Oh, we like Bridges." It's like, dude, how are you going to get Bridges? Now they get the third pick. Now you really think about the contract, and I think that's the thing. But yeah, moving on to Chris Paul. First of all, terrible leak. Like, whoever let that news out that he might get waived, and it turned into he is going to be waived, and then it turned into, wait, no, we're not actually waiving him. We're going to maybe sign and trade him. Like, who let that go? And like, how did, like, that's really on the front office to have kept that tight and kept their cards close to their chest, because now the value is going to be down inevitably a little bit. And this, the speculation, I don't think is going to help his value. And I think we all know where he would want to go. That's like, we both know. Should we say it on 3? 1, 2, 3, Lakers? Like,
yeah.
Obviously. But I don't know where this ends up, man.
It's a very strange one. I mean, I get it, but I don't see really the point in waiving him. I don't see how big of an impact that has for them to kind of be able to make the moves that they want to do. I think they'd be much better off surely like even a sign and trade sort of deal with a guy like CP3. It's just a very weird situation. Like, I get why maybe they're thinking they need to get a bit of younger blood in there. Maybe they could turn his value into two good role players, or a younger guy is going to be able to be healthy and battle through for an entire season. Maybe that's something that they're looking at. But to be willing to give up on a guy like Chris Paul after you get in a guy like Kevin Durant, and you really believe that this team is ready to compete at the highest level and should be at minimum making it to the Western Conference Finals every year, it just feels very strange to think that's the time that you give up on a guy like CP3.
Yeah, and you hear some names floated out there, and I'll float them to you. And without even talking about contract first, just tell me which of these names like stick out to you the most for the fit in Houston, or not Houston, the fit in Phoenix. Emmanuel Quickley, Peyton Pritchard, Monte Morris, Gabe Vincent. Rank that. What's that number one guy on that list that you would, if you're the Suns, who you want to bring onto that team next year?
I gotta back my boy IQ, I think IQ.
Okay, so that's number one. I'll let you. So, you got to make a move. You're thinking Emmanuel Quickley's the guy that you want next to Booker, that you want next to Durant. Why?
I think he offers that bit more off ball. I think that if you see the growth in his defense, that'd be a big plus as well. If that improvement continues, that would be the real kind of difference maker there. I think the off ball works. I think he can be a guy who can just be able to take spot up threes and then be a guy who can have a big impact on the fast break and different things like that. So I think he'd be a nice fit in that system in Phoenix. Yeah,
no, I agree. I kind of went between, if they're going to be aggressive and pursue one of these guys, you can't have all your eggs in one basket. That's not how it works. So I think that option A, I did think about quickly because the defense matters. I think the unfortunate thing with how the rotations have worked out in New York is that he's had flashes and he's had week here, week there, a couple weeks here, depending on if someone's hurt, but not having that number one spot. And it gets me curious of like, okay, if you gave him a consistent like 32 minutes a game, what does that look like? From a defensive standpoint, does he keep that energy? Does he continue to, because he was, when Brunson was hurt, like he looked like, hey, that's a starting point guard. That's a slashing, fearless shooter, tenacious defender. And that's a guy that I would think that he's not going to fold in the playoff pressure. But then I look and I'm like, all right, who do I know is not going to fold under playoff pressure? And I've been watching him. I mean, Gabe Vincent has looked like fantastic. And some team is going to look at that and it's going to be a Fred VanVleet type of effect. Now, the actual Fred VanVleet, they're not going to be able to afford. Same thing with Austin Reeves. So those options, I think, are out the window in terms of figuring out deals for that. But guys like Gabe Vincent, guys like Quickley, I think, a lot of people have been floating Pritchard and Monte Morris. I don't think the defense is all the way there for those guys to be viable as starting point guards for a championship level team like the Suns. But both those two guys, I would keep my eyes on that. I think it's unfortunate to see CP3 not work out there when he has really galvanized his program. Like they would not be where they are today without Chris Paul. Mm-hmm. Like his leadership there, what he's done to transform that team, what he's done to help Ayton get better as a player, Booker get better as a player. Obviously, those guys deserve credit for themselves, but I mean, he was a big part of that change. So it seems like he's changed programs. He's changed the Thunder. I mean, he really turned things around there. He was a positive force in Houston. He's been a massively positive force here in Phoenix. And it just always seems like he just can't get it done where he's at. So it's tough to see that.
Well, if he wants that to continue, maybe then a switch out to Philadelphia might be a good move for him,
Man, I've seen that, and this is where like we're not even in full like trade / the off season yet. We still got finals games and just crazy thoughts about that swap, Houston or Houston, Harden, Chris Paul. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. But crazy things can happen, and you never know what these guys are going to do. If he wants to reunite with Durant, it doesn't seem like that was in the cards. It always seems like these three guys just can't get at Irving, Harden, Durant. Now there's like rumors about Irving making his way to Phoenix, but I've had enough of it. I want to talk about basketball.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll get into more as we hear more on the CP3 and Dame situations and other trade situations. Also hearing rumors today of possible that Karl Anthony Towns could be dealt in the coming weeks, but we won't go diving into that. We'll get into some finals basketball. The Denver Nuggets lead 3-1. They just look too good. That's a simple for me. Looking at it very simply, the Denver Nuggets are just the better team. They're just the best team at this time. They've got guys like Jokic and Murray who are capable of doing things that nobody on the Miami Heat team is capable of doing. And it's just it's a big gulf. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah. It's tough because from a reductionist way like that's not untrue. Double negative there. But that's not untrue because the size advantage has showed up on the boards. I mean, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., even when they're throwing Jeff Green out there, like the size that they put out there, especially whenever Jokic is on the court, they are clearly out-muscling them. But, I mean, when you look at the little things that the Heat have done and how they've competed, how they've made the Nuggets work, it hasn't felt at all to me that this has been a series where the Heat are outmatched. It hasn't felt that way at all to me because I mean, if you look at Game 2 and you look at the type of looks that they were forcing Jokic into, even though Jokic has had an excellent series, they've forced the Nuggets to go down their progressions. They've forced the Nuggets to make lineup changes. They've forced, Christian Braun to be playing more meaningful minutes than Michael Porter Jr. And I need to, is that a German last name? I can't, people say Brown, people say Braun. Brand,
not a Brown.
Braun?
I think that's Braun.
Is it Brown?
That's Braun. It's not Brown. It's Braun.
Braun. It's definitely Braun. It's not Brown.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm hearing some of the commentators saying Brown. I'm like, no. They're like, it's the other Brown. It's like, no, that's
it's Braun. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. I thought that was crazy because I kept hearing it, but the impact he's had, and that just goes to show like they've had to do a lot of different things. And I think where I want to start, we could talk about Game 3 a little bit as well, but the first thing I can't get off my mind because I just finished watching the game this morning is how impactful the Nuggets' other guys were in Game 4. That was, I thought, such an important moment, not just in the series, but for this team as a whole over the past 3 years. I mean, what has been the number one thing that's talked about? It's Jokic is great, and the other guys, they're still figuring that out. Not so sure. And I mean, there's obviously the point last season where like the on-off numbers were horrendous. Like it was a joke. Like when Jokic was off the floor, they went to like the 28th best team in the league. And we've already talked about Brown. We've already talked about the front office of what they've done to bring this team in. But to see it in action, to see that in action in the fourth quarter, when I won't even talk about the refereeing. That's not what we're here to do. That's not interesting, whatever. But if I did talk about the refereeing, I would say that was absolute crap. I mean, it was the call on Jokic where Bam just flops, and then right down the floor, Bam gets another call for an and one on a clean strip, not an and one. He used a clean strip, and then Jimmy gets an and one and initiating contact, and then Jokic is out for almost it was 5 minutes or so, 6 minutes. It was a long time in a fourth quarter in a finals game. The Nuggets could have crumbled. I mean, they didn't have Jokic out there. They didn't have a lot of offense. The Heat were really pushing the pressure on the perimeter. Murray's having a tough time getting to his dribble. But they just respond to this team that's been maligned for not doing well when Jokic is not on the court. Like they went from having a 10-point lead, and they only lost that to a 9-point lead after 6 minutes of Jokic sitting, like getting open threes, fighting for rebounds. Aaron Gordon having the game of his life. Like this is the best game he's probably ever played in the pressure situation he's in. The fact that he's being forced to play the point a few times up the floor when Murray's just gassed, when Jokic is getting doubled, and he provided. the end of what, 4 or 5 assists, the pass he had to Murray down the middle.
Yeah.
Like he did just incredible things. I can't talk enough about how Brown and these other guys responded, and that's the reason why they're up, and that's probably the reason why they're going to win the finals right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy thinking in a game 4 in Miami, and the first game, basically, you'd argue that Jokic has taken off. Not that he still wasn't great, and that there wasn't reasons why he got, obviously, the roll of the ankle. Then he had the foul trouble, and then Murray still having his struggles. He's kind of turned into an Anthony Davis in this series, kind of one game on, one game off. That sort of buzz with him, the way
he had 10 assists in 3 games in a row.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He's gone away from just being that elite scorer alongside Jokic. He's remaining having a big impact in this game. 12 assists, 0 turnovers. The only person in the finals or the playoffs ever done better than that was Magic, who had 13 assists with no turnovers. Like that's elite level company. And then you've got Aaron Gordon and Bruce Brown combining for 48 points on the road in the finals. Like that is just insane. How just shows the makeup of this team, the determination this team has. Yeah, they're kind of like feeling they have this bit of a chip that not enough people have given them credit. They were the 1 seed in the Western Conference. I know I had my doubts going into the playoffs, but they continue to answer any questions, just like the Heat had done for so long throughout these playoffs. And now it's come to them and Denver, they're just a superior team for me at this time. I get your point, like you're saying, it hasn't seemed like that big of a gulf, but in reality, then they're plus 36 in points over the 4 games. The Denver Nuggets. There's times when the Heat can put together runs, but it never really feels like the Nuggets are sweating that much. They just feel so confident in everything that they're doing that they know eventually things are going to start clicking for them. Murray's going to make his shot. Jokic is going to make that pass or that shot, and you can rely on the other guys, and that's obviously sometimes the biggest plus for any team looking to really compete at the highest level is knowing that the other guys aren't going to fade and they're going to be ready for that moment when it comes for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the reason I said that is because, like, I thought that was very obvious between the Lakers and the Nuggets, like that difference and I wouldn't even say talent there, because I mean, the Lakers definitely had talent and they were experimenting with a lot of things. And I think a lot of this is so new for them because of the personnel changes they've had throughout the year and at the end of the year. And that was the difference. And that's been the difference between the Nuggets and other teams, is the fact that they're a team that plays so well together. Like, you watch their offense and any look the defense is giving them. And this is, again, not just a difference between them and other teams, but you conflate that with Miami. Look at how other teams are responding to Miami, constantly changing their scheme, whether they're blitzing pick and rolls, whether they're switching to zone, depending on the kind of pressure they're bringing up to the perimeter, and their rotations. And I think that other teams have had difficulty. It takes them a little bit to kind of sort out how they want to get into their offense. And that was the biggest problem for the Celtics, a clearly more talented team than the Heat. But the Nuggets as a team have so much continuity. They have so much, they just know each other. They know exactly where they're supposed to be. And you saw at the times when the Heat were switching to a more aggressive trap on the pick and roll, they'd set it in the middle of the floor. Jokic would go down and it would just be such an easy flow, whether it was kicking it over to KCP and KCP knowing that Jokic is going to be in the middle, pull it Bam Adebayo over, and that was going to be an easy lob to Gordon. Like that was seamless. That wasn't by accident. They know exactly how to shift the offense in response to everything Miami's done. And that to me goes beyond just how much better the Nuggets are, but how much harmony that they have as a team. And Michael Malone, I forget which Mike we're not supposed to call him, Michael, whatever. Coach Malone, like, he has got this just completely greased up and perfect. Like this machine works. And I mean, there are times in game 1 and game 2 where they won on offensive talent alone. Like, you saw their defense had a lot of lapses. Miami got a lot of open shots, and the same kind of open shots we saw the Lakers miss. But I mean, the Heat went off in game. That's why they won. That's why Malone was saying they had a bad game 1, because of all the open shots. But that I just had to say that this response from the other guys, if you were to tell me that Jokic and Murray combined for 33% shooting from the floor, I don't think they're winning that game. Not a chance. If Murray only has 15 points, Jokic only has 23 points, there's no way they're winning that game if you just tell me that off rip. Aaron Gordon, 27 points. Bruce Brown, 21 points. Like you said, the scoring that they had. I mean, Christian Braun, yeah, 1 point, sure. But the defensive energy he brought when he came on the floor, I mean, that's why he's playing over Michael Porter Jr. in the fourth. That's why Michael Porter Jr. is just sitting down. I mean, I will say I'll give him credit for the energy he brought. He just had a different style this game, but I think more than just being better, I mean, this team deserves credit for how well they work together.
Yeah, no, they're an unbelievable team, and like people keep saying, like let's hope they remain healthy now and they can really kick on, because age wise they look primed to be able to really be a team competing at the top of basketball over the next 3, 4, 5 years, and let's hope it can continue now, because we kind of figured that they were kind of at that level when that last time during the bubble, and then obviously things happened that deteriorated from that, but now they're in the best moment. Jokic is the best player in basketball right now. Murray is looking like he is capable of being a really elite guard, a really elite number 2 to play alongside Jokic, and the role players they have within this team are just are next level. But on the Miami Heat, I will say I've been really happy and impressed with what I've seen from Bam in these finals. I really liked how aggressive he's been. I like that he's scoring and rebounding at the same rate. What I don't like maybe is how much they're looking to him and how much they're having to go to him, because Jimmy is just getting locked. He's getting locked down. Like the defense has just done a job on Jimmy Butler, and these are the moments where you need a guy like Tyler Hero. They're missing that extra bit of scoring here. That has been a big blow for them, but I'm glad to see Bam's able to kind of take on the initiative and be the guy when he has to be. He's not hiding away from it, which is good, but it's disappointing they're having to go to him as much as they have to.
Yeah, it's not there consistently enough for me. I think we see more flashes for it, and that's why we're giving credit for it. And he deserves it, because that's not his game. For him to have grown from last year to this year into how aggressive he is getting to his spots. And there are times in game 3 for sure where Bam looked like he'd take a dribble, get to a spot, and he'd immediately pull up. He would get the ball, he'd get into a move. And he had a couple moments like that in this game as well. But I mean, there's still times where he gets switched onto and he's not punishing that enough. Like they were getting away with switching Christian Braun onto him. They're getting away with switching KCP on him. They're getting away at times with Jamal Murray on him, and he punished it a couple times. But I think the offensive touch isn't there to the point where that's the answer. And it felt like a lot of the offense was flowing through him in the beginning of the first quarter, and they seem to constantly do this run at him in the middle, let him work one-on-one, and Denver's just not biting. They're staying home. They're not biting. Go ahead, try and score. And that's just not Bam. That's not what Bam, I think, does effectively. I think we still haven't seen him be able to play above the rim until a couple plays last night. And I think it's tough. I mean, with Denver size, it makes it tough. And I think I underestimated going into this game, like how good Aaron Gordon is and how big Michael Porter Jr. is. And how even Jamal Murray, like at times, like Jamal Murray's size, like but forcing tough passes, and Miami's not been able to attack the paint as well. I mean, in the fourth quarter, they were not getting good looks at the paint. Like Jimmy Butler's having to take tough shots, like you said, and Caleb Martin sometimes is getting around Aaron Gordon when he's on the floor, and really like the only guy who's getting a few looks is Duncan Robinson, like attacking a closeout, getting a floater, but having a guy like Tyler Hero who could really do something with the ball, maybe get in the paint. He's not the most tremendous scorer in the paint, but they need someone to be able to create besides Kevin Love getting in there for 5 minutes and having a crazy, I mean, it's only 6 points, but like the Miami Heat were not getting any offense, and you just throw Kevin Love out there and he drops you 6 points in like 2 minutes. And then you throw Kyle Lowry out there, and then all of a sudden like he's getting to the line and you stop a run. But I'm really looking at Vincent and Strus. I mean,
yeah,
we give guys credit, and I think we have to point out as well when there's inconsistency, and that's why Anthony Davis gets so much flack, because you expect the greats to have consistency, and I think you expect these guys to do a little bit more than shooting 3 for 17. I mean, a big fat nothing from those guys, and in a game like this, It was a must-win. I know they don't believe in that, but this was a must-win game. They did not show up, and I think Robinson probably needed more minutes. Vincent didn't give a whole lot in 32 minutes, 2 for 10. Duncan Robinson in under 14 minutes, 3 for 6, looked aggressive, was even able to like get in the paint and throw some good passes. Like he's done a lot more, and I think he deserves to be there instead of Strus. You didn't get enough out of him.
Yeah, no, it's been very disappointing. I guess like you don't want to go straight to that line where you're like, oh, now we see why these guys were unwanted and undrafted and all that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, they've had great playoffs, and now they're in a moment where they're needed to step up, and they're just not rising to the challenge. It's on the coach. Spoelstra's got to be willing to make these moves. Got to give some more minutes to Lowry and Duncan Robinson. Obviously, they're having the impact that they're having because they're coming off the bench, but maybe got to give them a bit more of a look, because I've quite liked what I've seen from both Robinson and Lowry in this series. They're adding important contributions, and they're looking good when they're on the floor. Obviously, we know the limits that Robinson has as a defender, and that's why he struggles to get consistent minutes on the floor. But when he's hitting his shots, when he's there as a cutter, when he's being aggressive, he has that enough impact on offense to be able to willing to even just give him that extra like 3 or 4 minutes during the game where he might be able to get you that extra 3, 4, 5 points, and that can be a real difference maker for this Miami Heat team.
Yeah, and I think maybe a lot of their looks came a lot easier when Jimmy Butler was doing what he was doing. I mean, Jimmy did not have a terrible game, 11 and 24, 28 points, forces, but I think the dominance that he had forced so much defensive attention and opened up the offense, opened up the quick passes, swing from one side of the court to the other, the advantages he was getting from being doubled, the advantage he was getting from easily getting to the rim. I think he's not had an easy time driving to the rim, which is, I think, big credit to Aaron Gordon. I thought that could have been an advantage, Butler's quickness being superior to Aaron Gordon's speed. But I mean, he's held up quite nicely, and really the best offense that he's getting is off post-ups, and that slows things down. And Denver's okay with that. Denver's okay with staying home and forcing him into tough shots, because even though KCP is going to get outpowered a little bit, which I mean just really speaks to Jimmy Butler's physicality, and it's tough for him to be this physical throughout an entire playoff run, but he has to just muscle his way through every single bucket. And these shooters, I mean, they have a man in their face every single time, because there's not that extra help. There's not that extra man moving away from the corner, moving away from the wing. He has to score, and it's going to take some Jimmy Butler magic. He's going to have to go off in one of these games, because I don't think Bam is not bending the defense. Jimmy Butler, they're allowing him to just get in the post and take tough shots. And the magic that you see from Strus, Vincent, and Duncan Robinson just taking contested threes around pick, like that's sometimes it's there. Right now, I think you got to give credit to the Nuggets and how disciplined they've been defensively, for all the praise that we give the Heat, for how much pressure they put on Murray, for how hard they've made it for him to score, how hard they've made it for KCP to get open threes. The Nuggets have made it just as hard, and it's interesting that I felt like this is supposed to be a battle of shooters, right? This is supposed to be two really good 3-point shooting teams. It's come down to their perimeter defense, and both these hot shooting teams have been shut down a bit, and it just comes down to who can be more fundamentally sound. And right now, the Nuggets are proving that they can win in other ways besides their shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, this is where you do have the look for Jimmy, that he needs that other guy. It'd be interesting, like I said already, it'd be interesting to see what he'd be able to do if he had a guy like Tyler Hero, or if the other guys were knocking down their threes. You think of Vincent and Strus and Robinson, other guys were going like 2 or 3, 2 or 4 from deep, and that was kind of forcing the Nuggets to close out more, giving Jimmy Butler a bit more space to work in the paint, allowing him more opportunities to even get to the line and different things like that. The way that everyone needs to have that little bit extra advantage. But unfortunately, if he's not going to get that, he's just going to have to do it himself. Like, he hasn't had a 30-point game yet in these finals. And unfortunately, when you're the lead guy and the way this Heat team is built, if he's not doing that, it comes near to impossible for this Miami Heat team to win a game almost. Like they won that game too, but they were like as close to elite as you can be in that fourth quarter. And the Nuggets still had that shot to tie the game. That just shows the difference that there is between these two teams. And unfortunately, maybe Jimmy, he's hurting that, the ankle's hurting that a little bit. Maybe the defense is just that good. But unfortunately, he's not able to go full Jimmy playoffs, Jimmy bucket mode. And that means that the Heat are likely going to lose this in 5.
I think the Heat still got another game in them. I think they got another game in them. They're not going to go away, and they're not scared of the moment. And they've already stolen one in Denver, but I still got Nuggets in 6.
They're going Nuggets in 6. I think I as much as I've been wrong every time I said a team's going to close it out, I'm still thinking the Nuggets are going to do it in 5. Especially, I think Jokic is going to come back and dominate in Game 5, and Murray will maybe get that a little bit hotter, start hitting a few more of his threes, maybe cool down and looking for the passes and get back to getting his own shots, and that'll be enough for this Denver team. But who knows? KCP will probably go off for 25 points or something like that. Knowing the way this Denver team is going at the moment, but we got to give the shout out to that Game 3 performance from Jokic and Murray, though, don't we?
Yeah, that has happened. That was that's definitely where it felt like, okay, that the Nuggets are too good. I mean, they had every look that they wanted, and I mean, that where does that stand in history? We almost had 2 triple doubles. We did have 2 triple doubles. Yeah, two triple doubles. That's the first time that's ever happened, right?
30-point triple doubles. Yeah, first time ever in the finals.
I mean, Murray, I don't know if he was a little gassed in Game 4 because of that game, but like just relentless. And I think that's what's not talked about enough is him as a player. Like, he's just pegged as a scorer who gets hot in the playoffs, and I think he's absolutely getting credit for that. But what he does to fight for boards, I mean, you see him just flying in there, whether it's on the offensive glass, defensive glass. You see him willing to put his body on the line, put his chest into Jimmy Butler, play as much defense as he can. And maybe he's not an elite defender, sure, but he uses his size and he uses his strength, especially in the post against Jimmy Butler. Like, he does so many other things besides scoring, and the fact that he's getting 10 assists per game in the finals. I think we expected a 30-point triple-double. Like, honestly, when you say Jokic get a 32, 10, and 21 game, I'm like, oh, yeah, obviously. That makes sense. But to see that alongside Jamal Murray, like, this is a special team, man. This is a special team. This isn't I don't know. This shouldn't be unexpected anymore. I think this was what we thought we'd see in the future when we saw the flashes of this a few years back. Obviously, we have the injuries in between, but this is probably the most dynamic pick and roll duo in the league.
Yeah, no, it's definitely right up there. And I think I will say I've definitely seen improvements in Murray's defense compared to what we saw when he was when he first really put himself on the map in that was the bubble when he had his multiple 50-point games and that. Yeah. I think we really saw his frailty as a defender during that playoff run. But I think he's not going to be doing it from minute 1 to minute 48, but he's going to step up with a few crucial plays as we've seen in these playoffs. And I think now him and Jokic are like the first teammates to combine for like 500 plus points and like 150 plus assists since like Wade and LeBron in like 2012 or 2013. I think something ridiculous like that. I mean, the two of them have just been on a tear, and then like we keep saying, the role players around him, the guys who know exactly what their role is, fully committed to being in that role and just making this team click, making this team run at this high level. And it's frightening to think where this team can now kick onto from here. But of course, they do still have to wrap it up and really put the cherry on the icing on the top of the cake that has been this season and win the Denver Nuggets' first ever NBA championship.
Yeah, and I think just to talk a little bit more on Jamal Murray, I think the reason I love this Nuggets team so much is because like the difference in style that they have, the different things that they can go to, and you see that they have the best offense in the league when you're throwing the ball to Jokic, and Jokic is working on the post, and Jokic is going to throw a ridiculous pass like we've seen a million times, and then you have the moments where a team like the Heat are just suffocating the offensive movement. They're suffocating all the shooters, and there's just nothing. You can't get anything against a team like that. And then you got a player like Jamal Murray that doesn't care. Like, he is gonna not get tired of shooting. He's not gonna get tired of putting the ball on the floor, and he's going to get to his shots, and he's going to be a difficult shot maker. And I think that adding that flair to this team and like how good they are off ball. And then again, another thing that he's not given credit for, like, he's not a point guard you need to put the ball in his hands all the time. Like, that's why he's so perfect next to Jokic. Like, what he does off ball, like, for a guy who's not physically like Curry is just constantly running around. I mean, Curry is a track star. I mean, he's one of those classic shooters. He's gonna be able to run all game. Like, Murray has to do a lot of running too. Like, you don't see Harden. When Harden throws the ball away, he's got his hands on his knees. Irving, honestly, same thing. Very frequently, he's not really doing a whole lot of movement. You don't always see guards have the amount of off-ball movement that he has. So to see that style of play, in one player, doing whatever it takes to win. I mean, he's not just looking at the ball, get to a shot. He's also coming off pin downs. He's running around. He's setting screens, and he's doing it with full conviction. I mean, the style that they can go to away from Jokic to then go to Murray. And then in game 4, the style that they can go to when, Murray doesn't have it going, Jokic is getting a little frustrated offensively. Okay, so we'll go to Aaron Gordon. I mean, Aaron Gordon too, as a passer. Aaron Gordon, as his footwork has been maybe like undervalued. Maybe he's always been this good. I just have not noticed. But I mean, him getting to his shots in the middle of the floor, getting to the post, like, it's a beautiful game of basketball watching this team and how many different options they have, how many different styles that they can play. And I mean, we haven't even seen a Michael Porter Jr. game. You haven't even seen a big shooting game from KCP, and they've just managed to just pull this off in an amazing way. I can't say enough about it, honestly. This has become like a Nuggets Love podcast. I'm sorry, it's probably annoying to just hear for the past week, but I mean, there's nothing else you can know the appropriate reaction to have when you watch this team besides just admiring their resilience alongside the most resilient team we've seen in the playoffs. So, I mean, hats off to the Heat too for the effort that they've had, because this is not an easy match by far. And I would hate for the legacy of this series to be like some Cinderella team that just couldn't stand up to the talent of the Nuggets, because I mean, this has been a tremendously competitive matchup.
No, yeah, for sure. And like one thing you mentioned, the movement of Murray, I think that's something I definitely have noticed as well. Obviously, all the amazing things about Steph Curry, but one thing you notice when the first time you watch Steph Curry is how he literally never stops on offense. He is always moving. And you really do see a lot of that from Jamal Murray, especially in these playoffs. He is nonstop. It's near impossible to keep track of him. He's always there. He's always available. He's always doing different things to help out the team. And that's why things are clicking. And that's why he's looking like one of the elite number 2s that we have around in this NBA. But like you said, you just got to be in awe of this Denver team. We got to give them their respect. I especially definitely questioned them before the playoffs. They've answered 100%. The Heat as well. I continue to question them. Like you said, you never question the Heat, and you were right. They've managed to get, as the 8th seed, they managed to make it all the way to the NBA Finals. They've been awesome. They've been resilient. They've never stopped. They've never gone away. And if they can dig down deep and find a way to continue that, they could extend this series. But for now, I'm still thinking, I'm going Heat and Nuggets to close it out. You're thinking Heat got one more in them, and the Nuggets will close it out in Miami. But we will see. Monday is Game 5. Possibly the Nuggets may be celebrating their first ever championship. Maybe we'll see a Jimmy Buckets highlight reel for the finals. But I think that's going to do it for today's episode. My thanks to Chris for joining me, and thank you all so much for listening. Remember, you like what you're hearing, follow us on social media. We put up all the best bits everywhere. We are everywhere at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace.